So hopefully everyone can see that now. So first of all, welcome to this watch party. I want to definitely thank some folks, the library in particular, Louisville Library, because they're hosting this and have really put a lot of work into it. But also Lafayette Library, Louisville Open Space, Lafayette Parks and Recreation Open Space, Louisville Sustainability Advisory Board, Lafayette Energy Sustainability Advisory Committee, and Confluence Small Business Collective all have helped us kind of get the word out. Also, I wanted to thank the Cottonwood Institute, who are represented here by at least Ford. I'm not sure if others are here, but Ford Church is the executive director. And the reason I'm singling them out is that the All Careers Initiative now has an official home with Cottonwood. And all you need to do is Google Cottonwood All Careers, and you'll get their page on All Careers with lots of more information, the video that we're going to watch, and other resources. Here are the folks that appeared in this film. Thanks first to Ethan, whom we'll introduce in a little bit. And all the folks on your screen are there as they appear in order in our movie. So just one introductory phrase or characterization of the all careers approach. We want to demonstrate to students, especially in high school, but not only, that it's possible to use environmental and energy principles and understanding in all careers and to empower them to take this approach as they enter the work world. And some of the whys and other details we'll get into. This is one way to kind of think of this. All these little photos are of different people doing different things. And if we're going to have a green economy, well, we're all needing to be a part of that green economy. During the video, feel free to use the chat for questions and comments, but we'll start in on those afterwards. And then after the video, I'll introduce Ethan. We'll get into some questions and discussions, and then I'll have some final words on next steps for this All Careers initiative. And yeah, that's bringing all careers to educational settings. And that will also specifically let you know about an idea that we have for a student team to help take this idea kind of viral. All right, well, I will then stop my share, and Peggy, you can start us with the movie.
When I learned about this idea, I took it on as another filmmaking job. But as I learned more about it, I realized that this applies to everyone, and especially young adults, and that we have to be able to connect our lives and our systems, our human systems, to the environment. And the key is to learn more about it. As author Richard Louv writes, when people begin to consider the career possibilities of human restoration through nature, their eyes light up. Here is a positive, hopeful view of the human relationship with the earth, a way to make a living and a life.
Earth is an amazing planet, and that's because it's the only one we know that's alive, but also because we're a part of that life. We're the only ones in the whole universe that we know of that are alive and living on a living planet. Well, we all care about our individual lives, about how they're going to turn out, and we work towards making them the best we can be. These days, because of environmental trends such as climate change and also topsoil loss and loss of biodiversity, we need to factor that into our calculation about how our lives are going to turn out. We all want to make the world a better place, and I think this is especially true with young people.
You know, from first grade and then all the way through college, you sit down in a classroom and you're told what you're supposed to think. You're told what you're supposed to know. You're expected to memorize and regurgitate it. So you're taught pattern identification and memorization.
Sometimes I see nonprofit organizations, volunteers coming in trying to educate the student body, and they have little success because the students really, it's not engaging enough.
And if you're looking at standardizing something for an entire state or for public education in general, you have to realize that you've got people coming from the ideology of, this is how it is and this is how it's always going to be. You've also got other people whose parents are very involved in this and they understand that, my kids might never see snow-capped mountains in their home state or whatever it might be.
So my question is, how are we going to create a better world? If we don't want to leave it to chance, what are we going to base it on? To address looming environmental trends, we need to create the so-called green economy, one that's in balance with our living world, not overwhelming it. But when young people start to explore how they might address environmental trends, a strange thing happens. They're often referred to environmental science courses of study and envision getting environmental jobs, but not much else.
Our school is teaching us enough to to make us all want to learn about, eco-sustainability or anything about climate change. Like for some kids, they never even get the chance to understand it because they're not either paying attention in class or the classes they take aren't going to be teaching that kind of stuff.
I mean, there's so much other life on this planet that we have to look out for, and if we're not learning that, I think it's just going to skip people's minds, and people aren't going to think about it as much because they don't know how to think about it.
Like climate crisis and all of the environmental degradation we're experiencing is going to affect everyone. Of course, it's going to affect marginalized people, people of color, poor people, way more than it's going to affect privileged people.
When you teach students sort of this banking method of approach to education, if you just tell them what to think, they see the world as something static that they need to adapt to. History is unchanging, science is unchanging. You memorize it, you execute it, and then you graduate, right? But when you teach students, right, to see the world as a problem that they have the creative ability and the power to solve, they see the world as mutable.
In this short video, we make the case that all careers are environmental. That is, all careers affect Earth's living systems in ways that are good and or bad or even regenerative. If we want a green economy that does not compromise or even destroy the health of living systems that support us, everything we do in that economy needs to be informed by basic understandings of how living systems work and how people fit in.
But I think it's imperative, to be honest. I think that that education should tie in all these pieces from biology and ecology and geology and geography and and hydrology. I mean, how water moves, is so important, right? So these are things that a lot of people don't have in their kind of repertoire of knowledge. And I think it really does a disservice to all of us to have people removed from that. I think people really need to understand that they are part of a much bigger system and everything that we do is connected.
The kids have to be able to touch it. They have to actually get out and see how it relates to their world. And so often science is taught from this 10,000 foot view. And it just goes right past them. Who cares, right? I'm sure there's so many ways that you can teach environmental principles to an urban kid in Cleveland, so that they would actually care.
Well, how important I think that is? I think it's imperative for our survival. They have made this concept of caring for the earth or sustainability, and then you have to go to school to learn that. But I feel like we all have that embedded just because of our connection with nature through our evolution, so I feel like it's really just tapping into that a little bit. I think unfortunately what we're going to school to learn is very divisive, is very disconnecting, and it puts us on top of nature. It makes us masters of nature, and I think that's part of the disconnect, is even just the narrative that we're being exposed to in the educational space.
But it starts at the educational system. I don't think households, Ethan, are gonna teach children this. Just as I think there's households that don't teach children basic stuff that they should be teaching them now. There's a chance that the kids are going to get to college and mom and dad or grandma and grandpa or someone who was their guardian didn't teach them anything about a bank account and saving and budgeting, and they have to learn it on their own, or they took a class in college because they were a business major and they learned finance and then it clicked. But when you talk about the basic principles of living, who's going to teach you that as an individual, and in what grade do you start to learn that? So I do think it's really important that we have a basic foundation of living systems.
One of the things that we're really seeing is that we can't really pull humanity out of nature and out of the natural cycles. You know, we need to learn how to fit within the cycles of Earth in a balanced, healthy way in order to keep the health of the Earth moving forward. And you know, we're in this crisis period right now where I think the mindset for many centuries was that humans were somehow superior to other life forms or had some kind of right to rule the earth. But you know, we're really seeing now that that's not a very healthy way to think or perspective to have.
The fun part about sustainability is that it really is an application of common sense. Oftentimes it's about finding the most efficient ways to do things, and other times it's about giving more than you're taking. I mean, that's the whole concept, right? Leave the planet in a better place than when you inherited it. I think that for youth in particular, for students that are coming up through the ranks right now, it's one of my favorite things to do is to engage with kids in 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade on up through high school, where, you know, they are learning about themselves, but they're also learning about how they can apply their own passions to everything they're doing in their life. And if you can carry these environmental principles and really these common sense principles about how you should be as a human being, and you apply them to any job, any work you do all through your life. I've had 9 professions, 9 careers in my life, and I'm only 40 years old. So if you take those 9 careers, but in every single one of them I've been able to apply some kind of personal passion around sustainability.
In an analogous way, we need to nurture a widespread understanding of how Earth systems work and how our human systems, our human lives, fit in and are a part of this. As environmental trends become ever more serious, we need to ensure that young people that are about to embark on their careers receive training and perspectives to create a sustainable economy, a better world altogether. Luckily, healthy, sustainable visions of the future are not only possible, there are people all over the world who are working on examples, small to large, that are already realities. Some communities are living happy, healthy lives in a variety of ways, quite different than for most of us. And still others are thinking hard about how to weave these smaller examples and experiments together as larger systems.
So all these ideas really made me think what's actually being done. And as me and Martin reached out to hear more stories from businesses and people, we realized that so many people are already putting these ideas into practice.
So what I do now in the type of web development that I do is I specifically focus on data graphics. So I help scientists or anyone who has large data sets visualize their data. And scientists, environmental scientists or any kind of scientist now can collect so much data that they don't know what to do with it and they don't know how to look at it. And so that's my job, is to create graphics so that they can actually look at their data.
You know, I work in apparel and kind of gifts, a small boutique, and we were talking about kind of the understanding of where the things come from and what they're made of, and you know, the processes. And there's brands that are just leading the march right now in terms of sustainability and organics and, you know, cleaner water in their processes. And but then there are also, those are the bigger brands with lots of money and lots of backing. But then you can jump to a smaller company, like I was describing earlier, these little cutting boards that are literally charcuterie wood cutting boards, handmade, but made in Louisville, in the same town that we live in. So by supporting a small husband-wife team making these beautiful little pieces of art that can be used in your homes that will last forever, you recognize that it's not something that's been mass-produced somewhere else.
One of the things that I'm working on as a business and as just someone who's trying to help the environment is I'm trying to make a wax that is more economic, sustainable, with a less toxic and polluted runoff as a normal typical wax is. I thought of this idea because everyone has this common need in the ski industry for wax, and I've been researching on how terrible it is for the environment, how it pollutes the runoff, all of it.
So our entire model is based on the idea of providing education and experience in sustainable agriculture and food systems. So we own some restaurants locally that in 2010 we decided to buy the farm and start growing organic food that we could serve at the restaurants. And then we recycle the waste from the restaurants, bring it back here for our compost, and use that to fertilize the crops for the next year. So we grow, we have about 3 acres under production of a variety of different vegetables and fruits, and 100% of what we grow here goes to our 5 local restaurants. It makes up a pretty small amount of what we actually serve because we have a few really large restaurants, but we really try to focus on sort of heirloom varietals and specimen style foods that we can highlight on our menus to raise awareness about that food cycle and about trying to make sustainable local choices when you're going out or when you're dining or cooking or whatever. So we call the farm, it's an urban organic farm and education center.
And I work as FLOWS coordinator. And FLOWS stands for the Foundations for Leaders Organizing for Water and Sustainability, and it's a program that is housed in the Environmental Center at CU Boulder, and we partner up with Boulder Housing Partners, which is the local housing authority here in the city of Boulder. And what we do is we provide free water and energy upgrades for residents in low-income housing. But what's unique about FLOWS is that we go into people's homes with a different lens. So instead of coming in and highlighting the stuff that people are not doing, what we're doing is focusing on the leadership and the practices that people already have, and then building upon those practices, right?
So when you go to open the business, we had to plot out what we were going to buy, the equipment that we were going to buy, plot out the colors, plot out what ice cream recipes we wanted to introduce to the local neighborhood. In that process, we had a budget for cups and spoons and napkins. And going down that road, one of the most important things to me from day one was that we were going to be a company that had a very small trash footprint. And that meant investing in compostable cups, spoons, napkins, straws, and also making sure that things were recyclable. So on the customer side of the fence, if you came into our shop, whatever we handed you was always going to be either compostable or recyclable. You were never going to have a piece of trash in your hand.
I'm a firm believer that environmental education and sustainable knowledge and kind of that lens of sustainability is applicable to every business and every industry. It is especially applicable in the financial industry because you do have this real potential to drive market change. And it's not just, as I've talked about, with projects, it's also with investments. It's also with making sure that the members that you have, if you look at your thousands and thousands of members, if not more, they have the opportunity to engage with you on creating more sustainable infrastructure in their own life, as well as in community engagement and the social sustainability side.
And what we have installed here is an off-grid power system that is really accessible to anybody to build, but we have implemented some unique features to it. We're starting with a solar panel that's already been used for 5 years, and one of the ideas behind that, in coming years, many used solar panels that otherwise function will hit the market. Where to put them to use? It's going to be powering the shack for decades. We also have a battery that's based off of recycled lithium-ion cells.
So here's some of these principles of life, and The first one is so simple, we hear about it all the time, the circle of life. And this is one that people are already used to looking for, even in lower grades where we look at the life cycles of animals or the seasons. But we learn more and more about it as we spend time outside. This one here is about how the sun's energy drives the cycles of life, largely through photosynthesis. And so it's another basic concept which is pretty familiar to people. But as we look out and see the primacy of photosynthesis in our midst, we start to think about how the whole system is built on the sun's energy. And then we have heat coming off at energy transformations. And this becomes useful as we consider where we trap heat during the winter to keep ourselves warm and keep heat out of our houses during the summer. Then here's one that is definitely a principle of life. Membranes, especially important nowadays during this COVID era, but at the cell level, but also at the level of an organism with our skin, and then even between ecosystems and our Earth's atmosphere, membranes are really what allows life to continue in a healthy way. So all these things we learn about much more when we're outside. So our next step in the process of an all careers approach then is to say we take these and other principles of life and apply them to any and all careers. And this is a binder that we've started up making, and it highlights a number of businesses from carpet manufacturing to bread baking to the energy sector and transportation sector and then others, and saying that these are all environmental careers. And the way we make them environmental, i.e. green, is to understand how life works and how we fit in.
I mean, these are really some cool examples, and I know that my boss is trying to actually implement some different processes into where I work at a chocolate shop to be more sustainable, more green, and part of a green economy with like biodegradable cups and different packaging, as well as the factory for our stores now has solar panels and is 100% solar run.
Interesante porque nos enseña cómo podemos ser más verdes, y esto puede ser parte de nuestra sociedad y comunidad, no solamente en las ciencias, pero por ejemplo aquí tiene una compañía Moxie Bread y cómo pueden tener todo más sostenible en todas partes de la comunidad, no solamente en las ciencias, y siempre mantener la ecología en nuestra mente cuando estamos haciendo diferente.
In 2015, noted sustainability advocate David Orr delivered a speech at Claremont McKenna College in California, and it was entitled Hot Careers in a Warming World. He does believe that renewable energy is an indispensable career in a green economy, but advocated that all career paths should be part of addressing climate change.
I never think it's really taught on how things can be changed. I think it's heavily taught on what's happening now with global warming, but I don't think it's ever taught about what we can do to change it and all the different things we need to know to really make that switch into an environmentally sustainable economy and society.
I love like construction, and in the future I want to be an engineer. But during this, like there was a lesson where we had to build like a little shed, and in this shed we had two options: either make it the easy way, you know, use like listen to instructions and like actually make the shed like he told us to, or you can go your own way and actually maybe use like saving material, recycling, like things that actually help the environment. So it actually shows the kind of hard way, because, you know, I wanted to practice these ideas that I learned here in this internship, and like actually using maybe in the future in some real like type of things, you know, like in the world that could help like the future. So why not practice it now, you know?
When you're trying to learn how to use a medium, you don't really know how it's going to behave, but you observe how it does behave, right? And then you learn that aspect of it, and it's not like you're learning it to regurgitate it on an exam. The things that you learn can be taken into a different context and used to solve that challenge. So in my work, the way that I do this is we observe the way that our body deals with microbes, right? So you have specialized immune cells, they engulf a foreign cell, and then they bombard it with really, really intense reactive chemical species. So what I do is I found a way to convert light energy into those same reactive chemical species. So we can just deliver them to the bacteria, and the way that we deliver it, make sure that it doesn't harm any of your host cells, any of your body cells. So we are, in essence, doing exactly what the immune system's already doing. We've observed that. We've observed that we can turn light energy to achieve the same phenomenon. So we've just taken it out of one context and put it in the context of medicine.
Although I'm the one behind the camera, these questions and ideas have still been on my mind, more so as I approach college and learn more about Martin's all-career concept. In developing this initiative video, my thoughts have become a part of this video's mission for inspiring people, especially younger adults my age, to create a sustainable world that will last and flourish.
And so I really like all careers because it's this both and, because it allows me, if in an ideal all careers economy, to pursue being both a writer but also an environmental justice advocate. And so I think that's just so important because it allows people to not only follow their key passions, but to also support the betterment of the environment and the conservation of our Earth. So.
And on a planet where the climate is changing very rapidly, it's very important for everyone to be able to reach the goals that they want, because we're going to need everyone's help. This is not one person's problem. This is humanity's problem.
Over the last few years in my home in Boulder County, Colorado, I've given programs about this idea to high schools and middle schools and public groups. And that's where this initiative was for a while. But recently there's been a number of organizations and people that have taken a strong interest in this. For instance, the Cottonwood Institute, which is based in Denver but works with middle school and high school students in Boulder County, really is already doing this in many ways and is adapting verbiage to reflect this very all careers approach.
Our capstone program is called Community Adventure Project, or CAP. So we have CAP classes that are available for middle school or high school students, and essentially they learn about different environmental topics. They get to experience different types of field days, say snowshoeing or hiking, and some of them are able to go on overnight camping trips, because we think it's really important for students to build a relationship with the environment, with the experiences that they might have in different places, with their fellow students, with their CAP instructors as well.
And I think that experience then can kind of translate, into any career that they go into, because they'll remember that experience from middle school or high school and say, oh yeah, I did learn about that. And whether that career is directly related to nature or the environment, doesn't matter. I mean, whether you're a lawyer, an engineer, a doctor, whatever, a restaurant owner, business owner, you can incorporate environmental sustainability into anything you do.
So right now we're developing and presenting presentations and workshops for students, parents, counselors, etc., just like we always have. But we're developing this video to get the idea far and wide. In addition, we're interested in developing more resources such as mentor programs, other videos, curriculum, career fairs, and other public gatherings to promote this all careers approach to education. Well, we do live on and as a part of a living planet. And if we want to live good, healthy, happy lives that are consistent with our human nature and well into the future, we need to learn how to live with the life of this planet. The all careers approach is a great way to get us started thinking about that and to learn the skills and stories and ideas that we need to accomplish that. If we do it now and start it off and make this the way that we approach our lives, then future generations too will be able to live happy, healthy lives on this beautiful planet Earth.
We all need to be more environmentally literate. And in preparation for any work we do and any career we go into, we need to be guided by solid understandings of how systems work and how we fit in. This is a big need in our education. But this video is not just a pitch for us to have more environmental education. more environmental science in school. That's important, but what's more needed is to gain experience on how to use this understanding to address problems, to connect what we learn to make the world a better place in whatever we do. So I want to have a healthy earth that my kids can grow up on, and that their kids can grow up on. And I think that if we all understand a little bit about the beautiful planet we live on and how we fit into that, we might just be able to have that dream.
Okay, Peggy, I think we can get it out there. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that, even though it was, in fact, a little herky-jerky. I didn't want to cut in and have us start over. You all have, or you can get and will be sent the link to this, and so you can watch it on a big screen and not herky-jerky. But hope we can have a little bit of discussion coming out of this, regardless of the quality there. And to get us started, I'm going to ask Ethan McAleavy to say a few words as the videographer and filmmaker for this project. So Ethan, take it away for a little bit here.
All right, thank you, Martin. So first of all, thanks everyone for coming out. And so I'm Ethan McAleavy, and I'm the filmmaker for Making a Living in a Life. And as Debbie mentioned, I'm a senior and I attend Centaurus High School. And so me and Martin have been working on this video for the past 6 months. And during that, I've had the chance to meet and talk to all the amazing people that you've seen in the video. And I just think one thing I wanted to share that I found from my perspective is that it seems like everyone shares a similar idea that I talked to. And so, you know, when I was talking to many of them about universal knowledge surrounding environmental principles, many of them had already been thinking about ideas similar to that. And so it was remarkable that this kind of concept and this idea was already on a lot of people's minds and that they were applying that. And so what I think is special about all careers is that it's already being talked about, or it's not being talked about, but it's being thought about, and that this is a way to articulate it. And hopefully if we can get people to unify around this idea, that would be a way to truly spark change. And so on top of that, just everything matters. And so what's important is that whether you're a mailman or a doctor or a lawyer or an artist, everything you do has a larger impact on the earth. And so we need to learn to connect the dots between every job and environmental literacy and our own environment. And so in regards to the all career solution, I've heard a lot of different solutions, you know, been talked about and approached that, you know, could solve climate change or other issues surrounding our earth. But I think the all careers initiative kind of hits the core of that, where instead of relying on environmental scientists to kind of solve some of our issues, we can then rely on everyone in any job sector around the world to be able to solve these issues, you know, together as a team, and not just have one group of people have to handle all this. And so where this video can go is, I hope that we're able to spread this to hopefully the right people, where all the way up from elementary school to high school, we can, you know, give people a solid foundation of environmental principles and help them connect that to their own lives and the environment. And so, like I said before, this way we're not relying on environmental scientists to strike change, but anyone in any part of the world will be able to be a part of this change. So that's all I have to say. But thank you all for coming out, and I hope you enjoyed the video.
Great. Well, thank you, Ethan. And at this point, I'll just ask Peggy to kind of keep track of the chat, and or if you have the hand raise ability, because if we can take questions and comments either way. So what do people think about this? What questions do you have? How can we take this discussion forward?
So there's quite a few comments in the chat, Martin. So I'll give you a few of those from Ford Church. Spending time in nature, exploring the outdoors, environmental literacy, and an understanding about environmental issues and solutions is so important to share with students at an age-appropriate level from K to 12, college, and beyond. It's a great way to unify our collective responsibility. That's from Tiffany. A lot of great works and applause in the chat box as well. And from Kristen, I'm so excited to share with my students. It was so awesome to see some Centaurus students. Terrific job, very proud.
Great.
I'll just add, yeah, that was me, but I usually talk too much, but I won't talk much. I think this is so, I really think having high school students interviewed in this film is so telling. And I'm so, like, I had some of those students, and I'm just like so proud of them that they didn't take my class. Some of them did and some of them didn't, and they just like have moved on to like really amazing things. So it's really so awesome to see, and I think this could be so engaging to so many kids across the district and across the country. So terrific job.
And from Brenda, the question, how do we get involved and help spread the word?
Yeah, well, I'll say a little bit more about that later too, but one of them is simply getting the idea out through this video. Of course, we put this work into it. We are in contact with Congressman Negus's office, and they are showing interest in possibly helping us get across a statewide watch party. We put the same request, or will put it soon, to Governor Polis. We're thinking big here, because one of the biggest parts is just getting it out there, and anyone on this call and anyone from here on out can help do that. Beyond that, we're looking to get kits to high schools around Colorado to put together curriculum and resource materials. And obviously, we'll need a lot of help with that as well.
I have a question if anyone's not in line. I guess mine's twofold. Martin and Ethan, I guess, what are some specific ways to implement the all careers approach? And two, when talking about it, do you guys have some thoughts on some careers that one wouldn't traditionally think of as being environmentally related? Some that would make kids sit up and go, oh.
Ethan, you want to start on any of that? I have some thoughts on it, but.
Yeah, sorry, just had to unmute. I know that in the binder Martin showed in the video, there's plenty of examples in there, and that's really where I would draw from of certain jobs that I wouldn't consider. For instance, like Moxie Bed, for instance, I forget exactly what they were doing, but I know that they were able to do a huge turnaround and kind of switch to a way more sustainable impact on the earth. But I'd have to think more about some of the jobs like that. But I really think just every job could be, you know, could be approached from this angle of having environmental principles. So I don't think it's really limited in that sense, but.
Thank you.
One of the careers or jobs or fields that's listed in that binder that I use a lot because it shows the direct connection between specific environmental principles and in this case, carpet manufacture. is interface carpet. And many of you have probably seen these carpet squares. They've been around for 20 plus years now. So you make carpet squares instead of the whole wall to wall, so that if you damage one part, you're able to just replace that and not waste so much. But much more important is that these carpets are made with chemicals that are both benign and entirely recyclable. So when you finish with an interface carpet, you don't throw it in the landfill, which is still where about 95% of carpets go. You take it back to the company and they use it as feedstock for their next carpet. Just real basic principles of recycling and green chemistry and so forth. So that's one example. To the first question of how we actually implement this, if later you want to look on the web page of the Cottonwood Institute, there's a number of resources there. And one of them is a long and growing list of this very thing. How can we implement this in schools and museums and nature centers and Boy Scouts, and so that really the lens through which we educate is connecting environmental knowledge and literacy with any and all careers.
So Martin, we've got a few more comments in the chat box. As an adult, this is from Kim. As an adult that works in environmental education across all grades throughout Boulder County, I'd like to ask students, what do you think someone like myself can do to help support the all careers approach? And then Debbie says, our company is ISO 14001 certified, which means we take the environment into consideration in our product designs, manufacturing, distribution, and overall operations. These principles can easily be taught as part of engineering and business classes. And then Kim also says, on the state front, I'd suggest reaching out to First Gentleman Marlon Reese's office too. He has a strong focus on animal rights and the environment. And lots of comments coming into the chat box right now. I think along with sharing this video, it's important to have discussions with students who see it so they can best understand how it relates to their lives and futures. That's from Adam. And then from Ford, Cradle to Cradle, remaking the way we make things by William McDonough is a great book with other real world examples of incorporating sustainability into a variety of industries. And he shares the link there for you.
And I'll follow up on the last two. Adam is also with Cottonwood, and he is running an internship program with 9 or 10 high school students in Lafayette now. And we've talked a lot about this, this all careers idea, and the kids are starting to warm to it. And in fact, Kevin Cano, who is in the video, is one of those interns. And we're going to find a time to have a chat session kind of like this, only with those interns. So we'll be able to hear more from students. And then also with regards to Cradle to Cradle, that's in another one of the resources on the web page, Cottonwood web page, and it's a list of resources for implementing this all careers approach.
And that book is available from the library, by the way.
Yes. So, and then the question from other students. I don't know, I don't see most everyone here, so I don't know who might be students or perhaps as high school students in your family. Is there anyone that can speak to this? I see a lot of black squares with names in them.
Yeah, no raised hands, but feel free to come off mute if you want to speak.
And until we get a student who wants to join in, I'll actually put one student on the spot. Granted, she's a PhD student, but Dana is here with us. She was in the film, and you know, Dana, I think you could speak to this, even though you're older than high school students who are right now mostly aiming this at. And by the way, that just reminds me, I should tell folks why that is. I'll say why we're mostly reaching out to high school. But Dana, what are some of your thoughts?
So I feel like one of the things that stands out to me the most about this is that if you look at, I mean, I have a lot of opinions about this. I think that the way that we teach students of any age right now is deeply flawed. And I talk about this in the video, but we're just asking people to memorize things. And if you pay attention, you'll start noticing that students will identify patterns in a really clever manner. They're like, oh, well, this teacher always asks questions in this fashion, or if it's phrased this way, we know that's the wrong answer on this multiple choice question. So when you pay attention to this incredible power of pattern identification in students, you realize that that could actually be the real strength in a better approach to education. And I think that's what All Careers is doing. So maybe even to make the whole process like even more meta than it already is, I think that if we take All Careers and use it to teach all subjects, not just the sustainability perspective, if we use it to teach math and history and English and even things that are not, you know, solely STEM related, I think that helps sort of get the gears going in terms of the pattern identification that students need as they grow into the professional world and start solving problems that are actually more prevalent, right? That are more profound in the real world and not just math problems to execute it for an exam.
And so for the reason why we're looking mostly at high school, this idea, I think, is something that we have to all look at all ages of students and beyond. But in the first phases of this project, it was just mostly me doing programs, as came up in the video. And I've now talked to probably close to 1,000 students, 1,000 middle and high school students. And I ask in most of these sessions if students have heard some of the case studies that I've talked about, or even the general theme of connecting environmental literacy to all careers. And I've only had one affirmative answer in those years. From one student, he said, well, I heard of something called biomimicry, where we look at nature to in large part design things and products, but also processes. And that was the only affirmative answer. And to me, that was a huge red flag that here we are hoping for a green economy, as everyone talks about, but we're kind of leaving it to chance. We're just saying, well, we hope that people realize that there's connections here that need to be made, but not explicitly making them. So that's the reason why the high school emphasis, right where you're starting to think about your career most seriously.
I think this is such a large issue that it's when you look at it, it's like, well, what can I do? You know, you have scientists out there doing things, you have corporations and companies. I just finished Bill Gates' book on climate change. Lots of wonderful ideas about what he thinks should happen in the future. And it really does come down to everybody incorporating the environment into their careers. You know, a green economy is the way forward. That's where innovation is going to come from. Science, engineering, math, and beyond STEM. You know, Frederick Douglass wrote, it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. You know, we need to empower the coming generations with, you know, with the right mindset in going forward to preserve the environment for all of our survival. So
Martin, we have a question also in the chat box. I wonder if you teach anything about diplomacy or how to talk to people in the workplace who may not share their views and values concerning the environment. That's from Trudy.
Yeah, I saw that, and I did want to comment a little bit on that. And I was going to have Ethan jump in first, but I'll, since the question was raised, speak to that. And then Ethan, I want to just get some more thoughts that you have based on everything that's being said here tonight. Diplomacy in the workplace. since I've only been in a couple workplaces myself, I don't know the whole range of where it'd be difficult to talk to people within a workplace, but it makes me think of the great polarization in our whole society, and the fact that that's a challenge in and of itself. Well, about a year ago, when I was talking with someone about this idea, they shared with me that they thought that the all careers idea could really be a catalyst for being able to bring together very polarized parts of our society, politically and otherwise. And I imagine it could potentially be similar at a workplace. And it's going to be awfully hard to go across the political divides based on just environment. It's going to be awfully hard even on just economy, because there's so many different kind of random views on that. And it's even not necessarily easy to do it just on youth issues, although that comes the closest. But they put in my head, and I've thought about it seriously ever since, that when and if you're talking about being able to empower our youth to be able to understand and create their world, and what we need to do that offers the most hope for being able to talk with someone that might not otherwise be engaged to talk with you. How are your kids and my kids going to work together to build the world that they really want to need? So I hope that we can do that from the workplace all the way up to our nation. Ethan, just wanted to prompt you again here and just give you a chance to say anything.
Yeah, I'd actually like to answer. There's a question up above by Debbie, and it says, many kids are bored with the memorize and regurgitate method of learning. We need to find a way to teach these principles without schools worrying about standardized testing implications. And so kind of going off of what Dana was saying, I don't think this is something that should be taught in terms of memorizing or regurgitating it. But I do feel like I feel like I've met a lot of students and kids my age that are kind of from different spectrums of how they look at the environment and things. And I do feel like there's a larger looming problem of global warming and rising seas and you know, even just pollution and simple stuff that anyone can agree that, you know, would be bad for the environment. And so I think that it would be less difficult than we may think to get kids to relate to this and actually be interested in learning about it. And like what Ford said earlier, with where is it? About spending time in nature and exploring the outdoors and environment, literacy and understanding the environment. And so being able to kind of do hands-on approaches to different you know, topics, and then be able to, you know, go on field trips and learn more about our environment, would all be ways I think students would be interested in this and also be able to teach it without just doing simple memorization and regurgitation. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think kids, no matter where they're from, kind of have this pressure nowadays to, it's going to be our job to fix things. And so I think if, you know, my buddy goes into engineering, but I go into writing, it's comforting to know that I can rely on him just as much as I can rely on myself to be able to kind of shape our future in a positive direction towards a green economy.
Yeah. Just addressing a couple of comments. Someone asked if anyone could show this video to their class, and absolutely, that's part of from here on in, taking this video forward to as many people as possible. Feel free to use it, please. Let's see, can you distill all of this into some like 3 questions that everyone can ask themselves about their job to identify where change can occur? That's a good one. Does my job and my workplace / industry regenerate living systems rather than harm them? If it doesn't regenerate them, how can we change what we do, evolve over time to make what we do regenerative? and just a very general one, how can we minimize the use of energy and resources? That would be my three anyway, or some of my three.
I have a pitch for another one.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a punchline a little bit later, but I do graphic design. And one of the really important things in design, and when you're building something that another person has to interface with, you always need to ask yourself if it's intuitive. And one thing that frustrates me a lot, I'm in the engineering field, and one thing I see a lot of my colleagues doing is, in an attempt to make something bigger, better, faster, cheaper, whatever, is that it gets less and less intuitive. You kind of have to jump through hoops to do that. And then you look at nature and you see organisms like jellyfish that are so many years old. Like, they are definitely doing something right, and we're sitting here jumping through hoops to figure out how to deliver medicine, when the way that a jellyfish delivers its toxin is like the most efficient osmotic impulse ever. And so I think that a lot of solving these problems comes down to learning and getting comfortable with listening to our intuition, because we all ultimately come from the same place that nature does. So if something makes sense to us, it should also make sense to the earth. And so I think designing and innovating with intuition is another really important piece of this.
There's a question at the end of the list right now. It says, what would be a good way for students to get involved with what we're talking about? And I'll refer to one of the lines in the video that Ethan gave of, it's not just about increasing environmental education. That's necessary, but that's necessary is very important in and of itself. That is, there's a lot of people making a push for getting a lot more environmental education and a lot more outdoor experiences and a lot of real world experiences. And I think in and of itself, that is very, very important, very, very needed. But it has to be linked to something, and Ethan alluded to that. It has to be linked to, how are we then going to transfer that knowledge and experience over into the real worlds, hence then going to the all-career idea. But the all-career idea is not devoid of trying to increase all-around environmental education at every level. And as far as students getting involved, as we wind up here a little bit, we will give a couple calls for help, and one will be directly from students.
And I might add that from what Martin's saying, if this were to be able to be included in actual curriculums in school, I think for the student, maybe, it would be a different conversation of how we could teach this in schools, the best, proper way to get them to fully understand it. But I think it would be super powerful for not just to be put into one class that's, like Martin said, that's just focused on environmental principles and, oh, it's just another environmental science course, would be if you were able to sprinkle that throughout each STEM course, or just, electives. And so that the student sees that the teacher, different teachers from different backgrounds are all teaching ways to kind of combine and connect these dots of environmental principles, environmental knowledge in each class. So you hear it from different teachers, and you see that this is kind of, we're all in this together. So that's just my addition to that.
I want to invite folks, especially that haven't said anything or contributed, to do so, but I'll riff off of Ethan real quick here. I think that just the theme itself, just talking about it as a new way of looking at our education, could be immeasurably valuable because it's so missing. And so what Ethan just said is, if students start to see that their English teacher and their science teacher and their art teacher and every teacher basically has this kind of theme in mind at various levels, sometimes very overtly, sometimes just very thematically, but everything we're doing here can be linked to creating a better world, linked to creating a green economy, et cetera. So that's why I think just getting the video out, such as it is now, all by itself could be so very valuable.
Martin, if I could share a few thoughts as well.
Yes.
So hello everyone. Yeah, my name is Griselda, and yeah, I just want to say thank you to Martin and Ethan for all the work you put into this video. Yes, and I love the emphasis that it's on the younger folk, the younger people who really have the capacity to make a huge change as they go on into the workforce. So I think a great way in which we can empower young people, just like a simple first way, is just by talking about it the way Martin said, just emphasizing if we can have several different role models for these students, emphasize the fact that you can make a difference in the environment, even if you're not necessarily interested in the sciences. So saying, just telling them like artists are just as important. For example, the work that Ethan did, creating this video to kind of raise awareness on the issue. So like everyone is needed to truly make change. When we spread out that responsibility among all the members of society. And I mean, that's once again, another reflection of the environment. The systems function because that responsibility is spread among all species. So I think that's a great way. But another more practical way that I think we can really start making a change is if we can provide summer, and this would take, a bit more organization, raising funds for this, but I think it would have a great impact for young people. We'd be offering summer programs, paid summer opportunities for students to kind of dive into this idea. And so also the fact that it would be paid, just a stipend, but if it's a paid opportunity, I think it really opens and makes it more accessible to low-income students as well, who are expected to, make some income during the summer to help support their families. So maybe we have a program where during that summer, they kind of focus on case studies and examples of all the ways in which people have made a difference, not necessarily just through the science fields, but through all other fields in environmentally moving forward our society. And even, providing like scholarship opportunities. Like if someone in high school is like, what are you passionate about? Okay, you're passionate about making videos, you're passionate about art. Submit your proposal of how, whatever it is that you're passionate about, how you can come up with a project that tackles environmental issues through your passion, be that music, be that art. And then you could get, funding to kind of start on that project. Like kind of scholarships, I think.
Adam, would you like to say anything after what Griselda said there? Because there's this internship program that I alluded to earlier. And in some ways, many ways, it's going down this road.
Yes, sorry, I was like busy trying to find info on all of the internships that are available for high school students, so I did miss some of what you were saying. But so, did you want me to speak just to the internship program that we have going on currently?
Yeah, sure. Just because Griselda just mentioned that it would be a good idea to have more and more ways for students to have paid internships or jobs to start getting exposure to this way of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, the internships hold such a great potential because you're getting a group of students working together. So they're establishing a sense of community just in that way. But also, this is such a great point in time as they're kind of establishing their first work experience to start infusing a lot of this stuff into that work experience so that when they go on to whatever job comes next, it's going to be a thing that they're used to thinking of in conjunction with whatever work they are doing. And so, yeah, I'm hopeful. I mentioned in the chat, like Thorn Nature Experience and Nature Kids Lafayette are coordinating a few different youth corps programs around environmental education, and Boulder County Youth Corps in the summertime. I know there's also like Teens Inc., which is based in Netherlands, has summer programs doing restoration work all over the Denver metro area. So yeah, I think, and I know on the Cottonwood website, we're trying to make a lot of intentional efforts to compile and consolidate that list of resources for students who are interested in this, so that there is kind of like a hub for people to look at when they're trying to figure out, where do I get that first work experience, especially for students who are 14, 15, who may not be old enough to work in all places. So the hope is that we provide a lot of that as a hub for a place that teachers or anyone who's connected to a student can connect them with, the larger picture of how they can be involved.
Great.
So there's another question out there too, Martin. Any ideas on how to get people who don't care to care? And there's a little bit of response to that as well.
I see. Okay. Well, so I will answer this, and I want to see what other people think, but I think this goes to that idea of the polarization. Well, don't care about what? In other words, I think that if you were to put to just about anybody in this country, not everyone, but almost everyone, do you care that our kids have a future that they're going to be happy and healthy with? Who is going to say no to that? And who is going to outright say no to delving a little bit further? And there are a lot of people on both sides of the political divide who run businesses, who base those businesses on the best possible way to keep their community healthy, for instance. And in many cases, that goes to environmental health directly. Some, not all, but some farmers, and many great examples of that. So if we start down that road of not categorizing that one side doesn't care and one side does care, I think this is a topic, maybe the topic, I'll just say it, maybe the topic by which we can transcend this idea that some people don't care about the very notion of their kids being happy and healthy into the future. What do others think?
Maybe I can add something there too. I think when we say that it's hard to believe that someone wouldn't care about their kids living in a safe, sustainable world, I think there is a disconnect between what safe and sustainable means for one person versus another person. So for someone where financial security is the utmost importance, that person may be sacrificing environmental principles for the sake of affordability and availability in that sense. And so I think right now we're at a problem where there's a disconnect between these two worlds, that a sustainable future is not the same as a financially secure future. And I think that's scary. So we're looking at a world where a dead tree is more valuable, costs more money than a living tree. So people are going to cut down trees because that leads to improved financial security. So I think part of the work is shifting the structure, shifting the culture, shifting the way that we view the world and the existing economy so that it's in line with preservation of the planet at the same time.
Martin, I just wanted to give you a heads up that we're about 15 minutes out. I know you wanted to just be alerted to that.
Okay. Well, I do have some concluding slides that will hopefully give a few ideas for what we might do going forward. And we can still carry on a little bit after that. So let me go ahead and share my screen again here. So this is just another representation kind of superimposed on that earlier image of a green economy. I like to sometimes interchange that with just a healthy, thriving, sustainable world. And that the kinds of professions shown here, but any and all others can be harnessed to create that. And the kind of the red cloud in the middle is making direct connections to actual environmental principles. So just a kind of another way of envisioning this. And I am not sure again, because there's not a whole lot of faces I see, but I'm not sure how many students we have. We may have some, we may have none, I'm not sure. But if you're a parent or a teacher, please be part of passing this on as well, because Bill McKibben, who some of you know created 350.org, started with an idea that he kind of spoke about when he had a platform, but then he worked with students at the University of Vermont to launch a worldwide effort, 350.org, and it's still going strong. I would like to launch something at least here in Colorado that then could perhaps take it even nationwide. We have to think big on this. And it could be a team of local high school, maybe some college students that do this. And Dana is willing to help spearhead this effort. And I'm going to let her say a few words about it here.
So like I mentioned earlier, my big punchline is that I'm a graphic designer and an artist on top of my engineering gig. So I found that design and graphic design is a really brilliant way of learning how to communicate and connect with people in really innovative ways. So one thing I really like to do is I like to teach people how to do that and recognize what is good design, what is engaging design, and what's bad design, what really turns people off from interacting with what you have to offer. And so I think that as we shift all careers to something that's more nationwide, the most accessible way to do that is by connecting with people on social media. And so generating content and managing social media is something that I've been working with for a long time. So I would love to get together a team of students, teach them how to do this, teach them how to use software like Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Photoshop to create content, develop well-designed content, and then also manage social media accounts in a way that can build an audience and keep that audience engaged. And of course, spread it further, right? And become a nucleation point from where everything else can grow. So ultimately, I'm looking for students who like doing art, who like communication, and who are enthusiastic about connecting with an audience. You do not have to have any pre-existing knowledge. I'm not asking you to come in with, knowledge of graphic design or knowledge of how to use Adobe software. Basically, all you need is access to a computer that can run Adobe software. I'll get the Adobe software for you, and then we can work together and explore different ways that you can connect with people through art and graphic design.
Great. So anybody is free to contact Dana at the email shown there, and we'll build a team. We're not wanting to build a huge team here, so we want a few real interested individuals in high school and maybe early college. So for more information on any of this, just a few contact information. There's the Cottonwood Institute that you can find online. We will be sending out an email afterwards, and I'll put on Ford Church's contact info. My info is there. And if you all can follow up by saying that, or with the email that you get from the library, by contacting me, I'll send you further information. So actually, this was one that I had meant to possibly put in early. I'll just leave with another resource that has nothing to do with our All Careers initiative here, but it's an example of a few things popping up here and there in the country. This is out of California. It's called the Green 360 Career Catalyst. And it starts off with a kind of a self-knowledge questionnaire, and then has you connect with others in all sorts of different fields of work to see where you can contribute to a green economy. So I'm going to stop sharing here, and we'll leave the last 5 minutes or so here to see if there's any last thoughts, and we can carry on afterwards by if you respond to the email that will be sent out to everyone that signed up for this.
So it's not an email, it's going to be a survey. I can include your contact information there. If people want to put their contact information into the chat box, you can contact them that way. Or Martin, if you want to put your information in the chat box, they can contact you that way. But the only thing coming from the library will be a survey about tonight's presentation.
Okay, I will put all my contact info in the chat box for those of you that didn't get it in the earlier box there.
Yeah, and I can, Martin, in the survey, I will add a comment in there for more information, and I'll put your contact information there as well.
Great.
I had one last extra thought.
Yes.
So I had a question slash comment on like how we could, I don't know if you guys already said this in the meet because I kind of missed some of it, but I had a question on how we could get all kids like interested in this, like cater to all types of kids, like kids that could be interested in art or design of any sort, or music, or and stuff like that. I just had a question, or I guess comment, on how we could cater to all types of kids.
Are you a student?
Yes, I go to Centaurus.
Mm-hmm. Well, can I prevail upon you first to answer your own question, and then I'll give you a few thoughts that I have? What do you think would be the best way?
Well, I think that if we had like one, like in each subject in school, for one unit, we could like teach like in math, we could do like mathematical equations to like apply it to sustainability, like a word problem. Like one of those could be for sustainability. Or in art, we could do an art project on sustainability, or just any like engineering. Obviously that could be part of engineering, but just things like that could help.
Yeah, I think that's right on the nose. Wouldn't that be a great way if in every class there was some link to the challenge, right? How are we going to use our math skills or our writing skills or engineering skills to directly apply to making the world a greener, a better place? Thank you, Elke. And in fact, please, everyone here, Elke has started this off, to send in your own thoughts and comments on this. We're just starting. How are we going to appeal to the students themselves, to the teachers, to the administrators, etc.? And I made a note of Elke's idea right there because I think it's going to go right on our list. The other thing is that, well, we can't interest everyone in everything all the time. So I think a little bit different way of looking at it is we start off with what is of value to us, and then we try to appeal to as many people to find their own take on it as possible. So we make this theme that we've established through this video and otherwise, and say, how are we going to make these direct connections, and then appeal to everyone to give their own answer as to how we're going to do this. Make this a shared experience. There's one last comment here that came up that I think is really important. BVSD is in the process of evaluating its 5-year sustainability goals and setting new goals. I'll refer everyone to the fact that in the 2015 version of this, they have a very, very powerful statement. It's at the level of the board and the superintendent of BVSD shall do many of the things actually that we're actually talking about in this video. But when we've met with curriculum folks and a group that has, they talk about the essentials of education, unfortunately, they don't know about that previous statement in the 2015 sustainability plan. And so I think one of the biggest things is that whatever comes out of this 5-year sustainability plan and goals, that everyone in the school system knows about it and can start to act on it. All right, well, we're just a few minutes from the end time here, so I'm just gonna, again, invite one last time anyone who wants to chip in who has not had the opportunity.
I'll just add that I think we should spread this video because going off of what you and Elk were saying, that there's a ton of different creative ways that we can apply these to different classes and different teaching styles. Like I'm reading about Amy. She says, I'm an elementary music teacher and I run a music camp in which students sing songs about caring for the planet. And that's already a way to just kind of start developing these ideas of applying some of the stuff to Earth. And what Elke was saying about math, it makes me think about my class where we were doing some math calculating mortgage and depreciation on cars. And I was thinking about how easy that could just be switched towards, how many trees we're cutting down a day, or how much toxins we're putting out, and then how many trees we can use to kind of revert that back to, maybe how our air should be. And so I'm sure there's different ways that we can kind of creatively start looking at this. And that the more we share this, the more input we'll have on that. And we can hopefully develop some more creative and, well thought out curriculums around this.
Very good.
Great.
Something that I wanted to say real quick was congratulations on your film. I really enjoyed it. I think it's really important to continue working with our community, especially from underrepresented backgrounds. Those tend to fall between the cracks, and definitely internships, like I think it was Gilda that was saying, internships are really helpful for them. I came from the Nature Kids program. I started in high school, I went to Centaurus, I graduated, and now I'm studying environmental studies. And I think it really does change your perspective, and having peers that think like you really motivate you, empower you to continue looking for ways to gain new ideas for sustainability in all careers. And it's something that a lot of people don't talk about. And it's really important to include people from all ages, from middle school, high school, college, adults in the workforce. I really love your idea, and I congratulate all who are involved.
Well, thank you very much for speaking your thoughts there, and for giving us a last shot on the arm as we end the program here. I wanted to quickly say, for some reason, I can't enter the chat right now. There's no line there. My email is just my name, martinogle@hotmail.com. So for some reason, I'm not able to type that in. There we go. Someone else did it. And yeah, please do keep in touch. If any students want to be on the student team, get in touch with Dana. There's a lot of ways to move this forward. And one of the things that I'll keep everyone in touch that does get in touch with me is the progress that we'll be making with Congressman Negus's office and with Governor Polis. And I think there's a good chance that we could elevate this idea, at least through Colorado.
Great. Thank you so much, Martin. And thank you, everybody who joined us tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Peggy, with Louisville Library for hosting this, and for everyone for joining in.
Great. Everybody have a great night.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.